Good morning, Com 3430, Dr. Mueller. Little messy hair because I had a balaclava on this morning, which covers your whole head and hair because it's 10 below zero chill factor in Boone today. So bundled up a little bit on the walk across campus. I wanted to check in, good introductory work in the course. I realize writing in the discipline, there's going to be a broad spectrum of ability for writing among this group, this cohort, and that makes sense. I do believe that, of course, over time and possibly the COVID era, good structure in writing has been somewhat de-emphasized in some areas, and that's a problem. Now, again, AI's coming. I've got a brand new AI course working right now. I'm going to try to bring that into the online program next semester. AI is going to do it all, right? This does what we want. We just tell it what to do. We prompt it and it writes for us. Is that right? What about the structure of thinking in our minds, right? Writing in the discipline. Because again, as I said, with a student that is now at Harvard on campus getting her master's, she learned well from my courses, as you write, so shall you speak. As you write, so shall you speak. So how important can that be, right? We have the ability to speak, the ability to write well. It makes us powerful communicators. Okay, this individual told me when I get into Harvard, it was through those introductory group talks where I was noted for being a wonderful group communicator, right? And from my Com 1200 course to now this course, Ethical Advertising 3430, I always talk about how do you order thoughts and communicate and present them? Writing and or speaking, verbal, all right? And you're doing good at that. It's a good start to the semester. So what I would like to do, and I mentioned this to many, but let's make a few points here, and please take notes because these are things that I'll be, coming back to again when I assess your future writing. Think about how to structure this client facing. And again, sometimes people go ethics, oh boy, when they think of some esoteric, theoretical type course that really seems to be metaphorically 1,000 miles away from the business we need to do. And the advertising industry isn't like that. And I told you, I'll share later, there were things in my career I regret 20, 30 years later. They were ethical decisions I had to make under pressure. Ethical decisions that many times come with a risk and possible retribution. Okay, it's a serious matter. So I would just suggest for you, think through that always, but let's stay client facing. We're not esoteric here. We're not thinking, well, theoretically, by the way, a lot of you did great work on foundational authors. We have to have that. I mean, where does morality come from? Where does virtue come from? And as I told you, though, what I found over my course of, thinking, research, academics for now almost 20 years, where is the origin of that thinking? What is right and wrong, right? What is right and wrong? And many times, again, you'll learn Bentham, Kant, there's a foundational religiosity under that, which in that case, many times, religious convictions and beliefs can tell us immediately what is right, what is wrong, so you build off that. Now, for this first assignment, we wrote about postmodernistic thinking, right? Postmodernism, when there's a wide variety of thoughts, there's a wide variety of ideas and beliefs. That affects us, right? Because it's almost impossible nowadays to go forward with what is truth, and the Bible, the way, the truth, and the life. Well, that may be my truth. It may not be your truth. Because now we believe we enforce and celebrate different truths in our society, right? Postmodernist thinking. So it becomes harder to declare what is right or wrong, and that becomes more difficult in ethical decisions because I'm not here to tell you what's right and wrong. You'll learn in our case studies, there's probably 10, 15 different directions you could go with different individuals in a case. What is your ethical decision making, right? It really comes down to you and how you process this type of thing through the course, okay? And it could be critical. And what I've learned in my career, when these ethical dilemmas or breaches occur in the construct or business around me, you're under a lot of pressure to make decisions fast. And I tried to put that into the case studies I've written and developed for this course. You're under pressure, you're under time. One case specifically, you're under tremendous time constraint. The other, not quite as much, okay? But to think through your own ethical process. So again, good writing, good work on the foundational authors. Okay, we need that. Anti-capitalism. Now, some of you referenced this, some of you could have done more, but there is, again, many postmodernist thoughts. There's some that are anti-capitalistic. Now, again, this might ebb and tide through politics, but some, in a way, may denigrate the advertising industry. Because again, what are we here to do? We're to look best at the intended consumer audience, and then we get paid by our client to create the best possible messaging that will what? Give us a sales lift, increase sales. Now, there used to be more measures. Well, let's, what's the perception of brand? What's the recall of the brand? Nowadays, especially with these new digital AI advertising generators, it's all about return on investment. Some of the new AI models, tools like Pencil will proclaim 3x return on what you're getting now for your investment. Okay, so we've got to think more about our business in advertising and how does that work and what does that mean to us. Now, some will say that's not good. You're a capitalistic thinker, and others will suggest that's not a good thing. And again, here we go. If we are being ethical and we're bringing a strong ethical premise to our advertising industry and our business, that's a good thing. I've published a research paper on social action advertising, those brands that get involved with social justice. There's a lot of implications and things that must be considered in the thought process before you take your brand and proclaim a social justice, because one of the key predictors I learned in my research and data, one of the key predictors in consumer response to those type of messages is you better get your own house in order. Okay, what's your brand history? Don't go preach to me, metaphorically preach to me about some issue in today's society when I can look back 15 years into your brand history and see some pretty dark things that are hid in the metaphorical closet. Okay, so all these things are ethical. We have to think about what ethical is right. And sometimes you will learn, even if you're coming up as a junior executive in the advertising industry, you may be the one voice in the room, and that is difficult. That takes courage. And, we'll do a whole component and module in this course on dignity. What is personal dignity? Again, when you'll write about, no, I can't do that. I will not be able to participate in that project. And will you be willing? Will your ethical morals and values be strong enough that you're willing to stand against something like that and maybe risk your position? Those are hard questions to ask, okay? So in concluding, let me add a couple more quick things today. Think about this. I suggest to many, refrain from writing in the I first person form. I think, I feel. That's valid, but probably for a different use. Remember this, in this context, you are writing for your agency, okay? You are the representative to the client from the agency. Okay, so keep thinking about that. So it's third person, we, our view, okay? Because you're representing your group. And remember, the relationship in our advertising industry, the formal relationship is between the client and the agency, right? So you are representing the agency to the client, that whole group of people. So write in third person. One other thought, and this is, again, progressing with writing in the discipline. I call it flow, okay? There should be an interrelationship between each of the paragraphs as you go through that essay form. Like if you write a real powerful introduction, and again, I told many of you, work more on the introduction, picture the client, picture her face. What is it you're going to say in that brief introduction that really piques her curiosity, really makes her realize that she wants to read what you have to say? You are selling. Always be selling, right? You can't assume and be passive that people want to read this stuff. When you're writing on the ethical topics in this course, you have to think about, what am I doing to convince my client this is important for them to take the 4 or 5 minutes to read? Remember, you're making recommendations. Also remember, Some of you talked a bit, we're supposed to write in business memo form. Some of you did, some of you didn't. Here's why. That subject line should become a punchline, powerful. Some of you did well, you put in there recommendations, right? You're setting an action up for the client, because as she glances at the memo, super busy, has a lot to do this day. She's going, maybe she's catching a flight. She looks at that, you're making recommendations. That prompts her to think, well, this is what I'm paying this agency for. I'm paying them for recommendations. Client says, what should I do? Right? So use that business memo form, take advantage, always be selling, take advantage of that subject line, right? Then go into the introduction, picture the client, make it practical, make it conversational. What's going to happen in this, what are the topics? And again, I told you, that's best off the prompts I give you for these assignments. There's different topical prompts. Okay. Excuse me. Then the flow. The flow is how the paragraphs interrelate. You want to lead your readers through. So many of you, and I realize this is introductory level, we're learning together. Many of you it's block. You took the prompts and one, next. They're not interrelated. Okay. A couple things there. If you want to juxtapose the order of my prompts, put them in the order you think best fits as the prompts interrelate to each other in the piece of writing you'll be submitting for an assignment. Okay? And it's only one sentence, and usually as you conclude a paragraph, like when you conclude that introduction, first there should be an end sentence there that shows how you connect from that introduction to the first supporting paragraph, right? And then it's about that topical thing I gave you in the prompt. And then when you finish that first supporting paragraph, there's a short sentence that indicates and tells the readers why what you're concluding in that supporting paragraph is really important and connected with the next supporting paragraph, right? So you think you just interconnect, put that flow in there. Those are those little sentences. Connect all the paragraphs together till you get down to what? The concluding paragraph. At that point is where you make the recommendations. Also, in this type of process, a lot of the first part of your writing is going to be demonstrating to the client you have good research to support those recommendations. That's why I say add those APA style citations at the end so the client can see you did the work. What you're going to recommend is defensible because you did the work. This goes all the way back to first person. I think, I feel. That really is pretty meaningless. Now, if you're someone who flipped a $150 million brand and you created a bunch of new companies and you're the high-tech leader of the United States, yeah, maybe then you can come into a meeting and say, I believe, I think. But for the most part, this is good research on your behalf demonstrating when you get down to those one or two key recommendations, in that conclusion, they are powerful and defensible. And right under that, what does the client see? All your APA citations demonstrating you did the work to get there. Okay. So again, we'll practice more. You're doing great for that first assignment. But remember, don't always just think esoteric. Don't just report and metaphorically regurgitate what you learned. By the time you get down to that conclusion, you are selling. Like I said, one of the greatest ways I think to do that, bring in a modern news report that would demonstrate something related to one of the recommendations you make. Okay, and you can show them, here's brand X, they're doing it, look what happened, this is the kind of response they got. You can just, bring in that one external source that can serve as a mini case study to further support the recommendations you're going to make. Okay, good. Last thing, and then I'll conclude. I put a 1,500 word minimum on that. I believe most of our assignments writing in the discipline course, they're set at 1,500 words. Most of you did well. Most of you wrote somewhat beyond that. Some of you were well short of that. And that just isn't what we need to, because you have to practice producing content. If you come back with half of what that is, that demonstrates you didn't take it as far as you could have. And I believe every one of you is competent to do that work. And I'll state this real simply. If you're having trouble, you're sort of metaphorically, again, freezing up at 700 or 800 words, look for more sources. They're endless, right? There's hundreds of sources that will refute or defend the topics we're talking about in the course. Bring in more external sources. It's going to build your knowledge base, build your learning outcomes, and demonstrate to the client you did the work and got it done. Okay. So there's never a reason you can't get to the minimum word count. You just need to do more research with external sourcing. Okay. Always remember, we're simulating the real life here, the ad agency life. It's tough, it's fast, it's exciting. But we try to write and simulate what this would be like going to a real client. So again, don't just think about, well, what can I get to the professor this week? What's the least amount I have to do to turn something in? This is about you and your career and getting ahead. And even though some might say, well, ethics, I don't see ethics really too much in my toolkit. I'm creative, I'm strategic, all good. But I'll tell you again, this ethics course is going to be really important and viable. And that's why we all work toward in this class, the final project where you create your own personal code of ethics based on all the ethical topics we cover. Okay. So that's it for now. Good introduction. And again, we start out really strong now with, early in the course, we start really strong with the next assignment, artificial intelligence. Look what's going on in that business. What's your ethical approach? Okay. I'll look forward to getting that assignment soon. Thanks a lot for your early work in the course. I appreciate it.